It's Crypto Sniper, and I'm with you. And a quick look back at the past. What did we say last time? I'm going to be talking about today ADA, A-D-A, Cardano. Some people say I say ADA, like a cow. We all like a little bit of milking the old cow. But anyway, no, I mean ADA, ADA. Anyway, let's carry on. Before we do ADA, you've always got to understand direction. For that, we refer to the God market. What did we say on the 13th, today being the 20th? Let's hear super loud. This is a bit of a recap, but it helps to understand. So what's happened since? Well, after testing the high of our megaphone structure, you broke up it and you kind of came back to it. Now, what's happening now? Well, we're a little bit range bound, and we're currently on an up, but I think it can soften. It could even come back down. There's a number of ways you break the 47.5. My overall goal is there's a number of ways you break the 47.5. The key level and the key level of significance is the 47.5. We'll be showing you that and how it's gone, and the minor threat that we weren't buying into too strongly in our community, and we dismissed and stayed with our bull bias, and I think that's helped. But more importantly, the key token that we were going to be referring to was the aforementioned Cardano, and in that space we referred you here and we said, this is your guy you should be watching. Let's have a peek at what we said there. All tokens against each other for relative strength. And this is the value of the program, guys. It's how much you make. If we can put a multiple on how much you make out of this, if we can't have you coming out and it's less than double digits for your program, if we can't have you in the course of a year where you're coming straight into a second half potential alt run, if we can't give you that small multiple to cover less than double digits all in for your year's program learning and interaction with us, then we've actually failed. So we're looking at essentially the same ADA against Ethereum, and it's quite interesting discussion that I'm having with you surrounding 360-degree analysis, which is essentially what you do to assess relative strength as to where you should be in a particular tokens, which ones should you be holding. So with that in mind, I'm going to take you up against the refreshed look at Bitcoin and Cardano and see how we do. So this was a falling wedge. It didn't have the viciousness of the previous far uglier event that was the head and shoulder that gave us our 47.5. Note the strength of the sell here. It was a real spiller. It was a thriller all the way from Manila. There was a rumble in the jungle and it took a tumble. And out of that rising wedge as well, big spill. These were heavy momentum sells. So think of that, visualize and snapshot that in your brain and watch us go back down to Bitcoin for our direction guidance, because we always look at Bitcoin for the direction guidance. And this was your head. And what was the key level of significance? That was just run and for which you failed. A push up and then a spill back down. By the way, that's the line I drew for the head and shoulder, so don't lose your heads there. Let's move it out the way. That is your geometry had it possibly happened. We always draw the threats if they exist. Note, second attempt here also 47.5 was sold. When we were talking to you, we were somewhere around here, I think, and we had just made that high, and we were expecting us to do our usual key level of significance work. But the gradient of the downside was in fact falling wedge, which means you set up a pump. Now that could have been left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, but we said the following: the falling wedge nature in terms of our community feedback is not got the violence and the capitulation, the likelihood of squaring up and putting in an RH2 for actually a potential squeezy Japanese of any form. It could be symmetrical, in other words, a squaring up for winding up to break above the 47.5. It could be a falling wedge, a bigger falling wedge. In the end, we got a falling wedge on this down leg, but you might have had one like that, a larger one. So many lines, probably confusing folks now. Let's draw it again. So you could have had a falling wedge like that. We could still do that, but the nature and the momentum of that is pointing more to something that is squaring up. In other words, we are winding up to break the new high. So we are not got overly freaked out by the head and shoulders. Also, we typically expect the probabilities of an element turning into a head and shoulder when the right shoulder that's the one I'm pointing on now, is actually already higher than the left, already is reduced. In other words, typically you should have had a weaker shoulder here and a more, or potentially a more volatile, especially with reference to the downside. High momentum to the upside is actually not conducive to the head and shoulders being a head and shoulders. So we bias bull and we continue to accumulate during this period, and you would have benefited eventually as Bitcoin reasserted. And the key place that you would have been accumulating in is on Cardano, which we'll be turning to in a small second. What I can also do though, just to illustrate one more item before we leave Bitcoin, having asserted that we're probably stabilizing in the range of 44 and 47.5, is show you the overall historical volatility as well while we look at that. So you'll note with the head and shoulder, you should actually start getting more volatile and thrashy, and in actual fact, we've compressed and been pretty stable. So that's not typical of what you would have had, for example, earlier, when you were squeezing higher and then you had your smackdown out of the head, and you see that volatility increasing from a very low point on the rising wedge, and then smack down, rally violently back up, see the vol increasing into the eventual capitulation and further climbing to the all-time high before squashing back down. Look where it's low. Your fourth time, everyone was most bearish. I warned you, the sentiment was 10. I said, you keep accumulating, you will trade the falling wedge, which you got, and there was your break, and up we went. So that's kind of the Bitcoin analysis. I want to talk to you now about the Cardano. So let's get straight on to ADA. Got a complex about it now. Now I'm going to say Cardano and ADA. So the key part that we were showing you is the relative assessment of ADA. Again, this was we had head and shoulders callers. Yes, Mr. Peter Brunt. We said, no, it's not going to be that way. It's half-time oranges for the crypto. It's not the end of the run, but a lot of people thought it was the end of the run. And this is what they've missed out on. This is the key element. People get shaken out of good trades all the time out of fear. People don't understand that you just make sure you're in the right tokens. Most of the crypto market cap, what did they do today? Let's just have a little quick reminder. This is what it's been worth to you, being rather in Cardano over the last 7 days since I did that clip. And I'm talking about the big macro guys, then say Bitcoin. 35% versus 5%. Ethereum is even under. That's 31% more performance over the last period. Now, you only need to have 30 grand and you've already more than paid for our program, plus got some bonuses, just in essence of that last 6 days. And that was given to you free, but the people in our program were looked after, reminded every day, all the detail and the timing in terms of what our key trade is. And we have our next token that we think will be exactly the same, slightly lower down, which might even mean a higher beta. But we can't give you everything because you don't appreciate and you don't act on it. But hopefully you did jump on your Cardano and you did just fine with it, and there's some value in it. By the way, this kind of momentum, this push up in the momentum is not likely, in my opinion, not likely at all to stop without running this previous high here. It has already come perilously close, and I wouldn't expect it. Yes, you could have a bit of a pullback. There's a little bit of a selling wick there. Sure. You could have a little bit of a pullback, but I'm expecting further highs to occur. And we'll cover that when we do the other part of the cross analysis, which is the 360 degrees. Do the 360 degree analysis and understand and have a template on what basis you do your analysis for. So here was our consistent grind up. That was our squeezy before you started to get really strong up. Descending megaphone on bull pole. Yes, sir, you continue up, you break up, you broke the 2 level, key level of significance. What happens? Descending megaphone of a slightly bigger scale on a bull pole. You start squeezing up against the capping descending grind line in red, and guess what? You squeeze and you bust it. And you're talking about the best performance in most cryptos, never mind the top 20, for the last couple of hours. You've got the better part of 2 hour, 2 hour, 2 hour, and 2 hour. That is 4 2-hour spells. The last 8 hours best performance. Never mind that you were holding up pretty firm when the others were looking a little bit sick. Compared to ETH, ADA is run away. We gave you this chart. That was what I was just showing you in the previous recording. We were down here somewhere when that was being discussed, ADA to Ethereum. And we're quite a fan of Ethereum, but we know that there are going to be tokens that are going to be overperforming it. And when they are, we want to be in them, not in Ethereum. So the ADA bull, man, they won't let me buy anymore. FTX, like, too large, too large, too large. Guess what? The ADA bull is doing just fine for me, and it could have been doing fine for you. And of course, just trading it on the perp is also good, or just owning some in spot. It's all good, providing you understand your money management. You should be fine. These are our draws, and what are we giving you? Well, now that we have our target, we're going to run through 12.6. I expect you to run through what we call it 130,000 gwei. I'm not allowed to say sats. Gwei. 130,000 gwei. We're talking about Ethereum as the other part of the pair there. When you were at the bottom down here and you were just inching up and starting to get exciting, coming out the blood basement, you were at 53,000. And now we're talking 120. That is almost, and with a bit of overperformance through to 130, it could end up 150. Doesn't have to go too much further, and I think this will be probably quite blow-offy. So you could technically be at a 3x relative to Ethereum, which shouldn't be doing so badly of its own accord either. So that's quite spectacular for a coin that's already in the top 3 or 4 of the token. What number is Cardano now? I think it's taken Binance. 76 does 62. It is the third largest crypto after Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's going to gain ground on ETH. Yep, some news about Japan and all of that, and the Japanese loving it. Yeah, there will be fundamentals. I trade technically, or follow the money, watch the level. You can never expect to be first or have an edge on a story, regardless. You can't watch Charles Hoskinson videos any faster than anybody else and react on it. So this is a great move. This represents a great move. By the way, volume by price totally confirms our funnel. You'll learn how to do that. Grab mini series, and better still, book a call and learn what it is we do and why, and have a look at this other bull chart in the meantime. So since that falling wedge break, you could have been in at 732 to 4,400 right now. 4,400 right now, with a bit of catch up. Don't trade leverage tokens unless you have some experience. They can go down, and they'll go down a lot faster. This is not an easy push. If you know when to take off and you have real targets, real method, and you're catching an impulsive fast move, very big rewards can be harvested. In the same way, heading down, large amounts of capital can be lost. As we are bullish for now, I feel it's relatively safe to talk about these things. You can even have a short period of hodl if you like. By the way, previous tap outs on values that Cardano have already surpassed, it was 94,000. So if we can get a consistent and very strong run, it's amazing how quickly these numbers can grow. Okay, so that is just saying, did you see it? Were you in it? We're talking about it every day, and we've got our next one lined up. If that's what you want to do, book a call on the links below. By the way, it really just takes 6 days like this by being properly weighted, having confidence, and standing to and making the profits that should be coming your way in the most strongest relative strength token in the market, with the guy who kept you long after we traded through the 30K and said, don't panic, don't let all the bears shake you out. Stay long, stay long, stay long. It's accumulate, keep your blue pot, and we will be buying leverage soon to the long side. And we will be picking the stars. And you've already had Solana out of us. Now you have ADA out of us. How you doing? We're doing great. We'll catch you on the other side. Have a chat to somebody much like yourself and see whether it's worthwhile for yourself. There's no obligation. We look forward to having you. Thanks for watching. And you'll be hearing about the next one once it's well on its way and we've all got our boots filled. Bye for now.